You know that moment when you're absolutely sure that pulling away will make your avoidant partner suddenly wake up and chase you? Yeah, that doesn't usually go how we hope. Before I knew a thing about attachment theory, I thought leaving would trigger some big cinematic reaction, like they'd finally realize what they'd lost and see my true value. But it didn't. And if it hasn't for you either, there's a reason. Maybe you've done the whole let's make them miss me routine. You know, the 3-day texting rule, or the busy but thriving Instagram posts, or the cryptic quote you post about self worth. You hoped they'd see it, feel something, and come running. But instead, you get radio silence. Nothing. Not even a breadcrumb. It can be very confusing on the receiving end, especially if you had no idea that your partner or love interest was avoidant. The waiting can feel like agony. And if you've got an anxious attachment style, it can stir up old subconscious wounds, making you feel panicked inside. That silence hurts because part of you expected proof that they cared. You told yourself, if they really love me, they'll chase me. But they don't. And you end up wondering, are avoidants just heartless? Or is something else going on? The truth is, it's not about you. It's about how they've learned to protect themselves. Avoidants aren't playing hard to get. They're playing hard to feel. When you try to make them chase, it's like dangling a steak in front of a vegetarian and wondering why they're not biting. Their nervous system just isn't wired for pursuit the way yours might be. What's confusing is that avoidants do want connection. They're human. They imagine closeness, softness, and love. But when real intimacy arrives, it sets off alarm bells. Their body registers it as danger and being too close. They may not even know why, they just feel the urge to pull back because it's a nervous system response. For them, chasing someone means charging straight into vulnerability, and that feels less like romance and more like walking into a lion's den. On top of that, rejection feels catastrophic. To an avoidant, it doesn't just sting, it confirms their worst fear that getting close always leads to pain. So rather than risk that, they stay behind their emotional walls. They call it independence. Really, it's survival. That's one of the most confusing things about avoidance. They crave love but fear the very thing that creates it. Avoidants are emotional architects. They've spent years designing walls that keep them safe from the chaos of closeness. Chasing someone means surrendering control, handing over the keys to the fortress. And for someone whose safety depends on control, that's unthinkable. They tell themselves they're just staying independent. But it's not independence running the show, it's fear. Fear of being engulfed, of losing autonomy, of losing themselves. So while you're wondering, why won't they text me back? They're sitting there thinking, if it's meant to be, they'll come to me. They think they're in charge. But really, their defenses are driving. Avoidance wear independence like a badge of honor. They've built their whole identity on not needing anyone. So the idea of chasing someone, of showing want or care, it feels like pulling the rug out from under that identity. For them, neediness equals weakness. And the moment they start caring too much, their inner alarm goes off that says, something's wrong. You're losing yourself. What's interesting is that avoidants feel the same emotions you do: longing, desire, love. They just interpret those feelings differently. You feel closeness and lean in. They feel it and retreat. Same wave, opposite reaction. So while you're hoping they'll reach out, they're convincing themselves that silence is strength. Here's where the anxious avoidant dynamic turns tragicomic. You pull away hoping they'll panic and chase you. But to them, your distance screams, see? I was right. People always leave instead of chasing, they double down on self-protection. They don't see your silence as a challenge, they see it as confirmation. Pulling away and no contact are not the same. Pulling away is usually a test, full of mixed signals. Avoidants sense the game and refuse to play. But no contact, which is a calm, intentional boundary that they can at least understand. They might not chase you then either, but they'll know you're serious. Underneath all this is history. Avoidants often grew up in homes where needs weren't met, or were even punished. They were often expected to manage their own emotions from early on. Some avoidants heard things like, big boys don't cry. They learned early that closeness leads to disappointment. So they built a rule for survival that says, don't rely on anyone. Don't get too close. Emotions have no real use. By adulthood, that rule feels like truth. So chasing someone, admitting they need them, feels like breaking a lifelong law. That armor keeps them safe, sure, but it also keeps them alone. Chasing someone would mean dropping the sword, and to them that feels like death, not love. Avoidants aren't heartless, they're scared. And fear disguised as self-sufficiency is still fear. You can't make an avoidant chase you. You can't out-strategize their nervous system. Every protest move, every silence, every post, it feeds their confirmation bias that says, see, people always leave. Better stay distant. So the only way to win this game is not to play it. Real connection happens when two people step toward each other, not when one is running and the other is hiding. It takes healing on both sides where the anxious person is calming their panic, and the avoidant is learning that closeness isn't a trap. If you're stuck trying to get the avoidant's attention, pause. You're not crazy. You're not needy. You're probably anxious attached. But chasing them won't soothe the panic. It feeds it. Before trying to make them chase you, focus on you. Spend some time doing this. First, uncover your core wounds. What are you really afraid of? Is it being alone? Being unchosen? Second, notice your protest behavior. Are you posting, pulling away, or baiting? Just to feel seen. Third, self-soothe first. Calm your nervous system before you reach out. And fourth, practice choosing you. Not because you're giving up on them, but because peace is your new non-negotiable. When you start healing, something amazing happens. You stop trying to earn love from those who won't give it freely. And you stop mistaking distance for depth. You don't need to be chased, you need to be met. And avoidance can only meet someone halfway when they're aware of their attachment issues and are willing to do the work to become more secure. So if your avoidant ex doesn't chase you, remember that it's not about rejection. It's about self-protection. You're not unlovable. You just bumped into someone who's still afraid of love's intensity. When they're ready to do their work, they'll learn that love doesn't demand chasing. It invites meeting. Until then, your job is to keep walking forward toward people who know how to walk with you. If you got some value from this video, subscribe to My Avoidant X. You'll find a free worksheet to help you uncover your core wounds and attachment insecurities in the pinned comments of this video.